welcome to the Day and Night News Prime Debate. If one wants good results, he simply has to put his best men in the right places and encourage them. Bonus and incentives are surely the motivating factors for anybody. Rightly so, the corporate sector has experienced it, and now the government wants to shed off the chalta hai attitude of its babus. Consequently, the performance of government employees will be monitored and incentives given accordingly. The government has been toying with the idea of introducing a performance-linked payout to the efficient government employees for the last 20 years, but has failed to deliver it so far. Even the 6th Pay Commission recommended a small portion of the government employees' salary to be linked to the performance, but this has not been implemented so far. Now, for the first time in India, the performance of the departments and ministries will be measured.
Good governance lies in the prevalent daily interface between the lowest babu and the public. There are two kinds of individuals in the government. One is helpful, the other entangles you in red tape. So it comes down to a matter of attitude, which percolates down from top to the lowest level. In the private sector, the competitive spirit helps create an attitude of service. Studies confirm that high-performing companies create an environment that rewards employees with a helpful attitude. Such employees, they know when customers and raise the organization's morale. Hence, they often hire people for their attitudes and train them in skills. Now the government intends to bring in the same philosophy to its bureaucratic system too. Accordingly, a results framework document system is being put in place. This system will measure the performance of departments and ministries of the Government of India. This is expected to bring in efficiency of administration and introduce a performance bonus for government employees. Indian bureaucrat is basically careerist and ought to respond to the right incentives. Motivated senior officials with the right attitude are crucial to creating an enabling state. If implemented well, the new system could make officers accountable, motivating the honest and punishing the lazy and corrupt.
To discuss more on this, we are joined in the studios by Mr. Rajan Kashyap, an IAS officer who retired recently, and he is the former Chief Information Commissioner Punjab. Mr. Dharamveer, also a retired IAS officer, he is currently the Haryana State Election Commissioner. Mr. Hemant Goswami, Chairperson, Burning Brain Society. And Mr. B.K. Srivastav, also an IAS officer, he is the Director General, Mahatma Gandhi State Institute of Public Administration in Punjab. Mr. Kashyap, I'm going to start with you. You've been co-opted in the operation of the results framework document. Before we exactly discuss the document, I want to check with you, what was the need felt for having such an assessment and such an evaluation?
I would consider three reasons. First, of all the services and institutions, the civil service or the government is not subject to any objective appraisal. There is very little accountability. Secondly, quite often it was found that the minister and the bureaucrats are not on the same page. So with this RFD, results framework documents, both have to agree. And thirdly, then the red tape that is binding the government, that has to be untied.
But Mr. Kashyap, I remember a similar experiment was made in 2005, but I don't think that really succeeded. It was proposed and then it kind of petered out. Do you think this time this could succeed?
I think the environment in India is changing. Now there is much more accountability, openness, transparency. The Right to Information Act was one such institution. The second one is going to be RFD. I think the time is come for more accountability from government, and I'm sure this time it should succeed.
Mr. Dharamveer, you've been the Chief Secretary of Haryana. Do you also feel that we need such a evaluation and a monitoring system?
No, yes, we do need some system to monitor. People should know outcome of a particular ministry or a department. But the way this document has been structured is not going to lead us to a very large extent. I mean, it won't yield the results. Firstly, it's some kind of an MOU between, this is what the document says, what I have got, between the civil servants and the political boss. Here you are evaluating the officers. What about evaluating the minister himself? And there are many other pitfalls.
You made some very valid points, but tell me, what is the present system of evaluation of the officers?
There is a performance appraisal system which came in 2007, and we rank every officer. There is a system that the officer and his boss and then the minister, they have to agree on the agenda what he would do, and then it is supposed to be reviewed every
but the general feeling is in the public that there is no evaluation or very little evaluation. No, but anybody who gets into the service, he kind of rises to the very top.
I appreciate what you are saying, but the whole ethos has to change. Merely RFD will not do that. The reason is that the procedures, systems, the way the government departments are structured, if you have to send one paper for a decision making, it takes, if everybody is efficient, it takes at least 10 days.
Document or the system doesn't take account of all these
there are
possible
the whole ethos of the government.
Yes.
Sir, when you go into this process of RFD, when you are monitoring and when you are writing down the whole thing, what are the objectives, what are the success indicators, how they are to be enumerated, and after that, sir, then naturally once you sit to do all this, you will take into account what are the bottlenecks and the RFD.
In theory this looks very fine, but I think he's talking from his practical experience also.
Can you assure this security of tenure to an officer? How will perform?
Such issues will emerge thereafter.
Mr. Srivastav, whenever any cadre review takes place, Government of India says that officer would be in position for 2 years. The tenure of certain things are fixed. Has any government in the country, even Government of India, does it follow? Number one. Number two, transfers. Then what are the enabling other issues? The secretary of a department, what power does he enjoy? There are procurement issues, there are recruitment issues, that is personnel management. This, he is not insulated. Let us appreciate this fact. In a private sector, I mean, going through what has been said, all the people, most of the people who are involved, even IIM professors who are involved, how are they evaluated?
I get you. Before we get into a greater discussion, can I just begin, Hemant Goswami? Hemant, as an RTI activist, I think you've been keeping the civil servants on their toes. Do you think we required an appraisal system of the kind which is coming about?
Kavarji, after I saw the document, initially I used to think, yes, we require a system, but this is not a system which will bring in any transparency or any kind of accountability. And I am very sad to see the policy document, because it looks like that our policies, the policies of Government of India, are being run by Washington DC, because this is a straight pick from the Governance, Performance and Results Act of 1993 of the US. So what Mr. Prajapati has done, who is controlling secretary of this, has just picked up a document, further twisted it, made it less practical, and then given it to the Government of India for implementing.
You raised some very valid points, Hemant, but Mr. Srivastav, would you like to react to that, because Punjab and your institute has volunteered to be the pilot for this project?
I will tell you one thing first of all. You see, the success of democracy lies in the public being informed. So information to the public is very important. Therefore, what is the government's priority listed? Because it is ultimately the government which will determine the priorities for the public, because they have the mandate from the people. So it is just a documentation, systematic documentation. What are the priorities? What are the performance appraisal parameters? How these parameters are to be weighted, average marking is there.
This is what is done in the corporate world. We lay out the key result areas, the key RAs.
Starts from there. Actually, Mr. Prajapati himself wrote a paper. I found his paper which I written while evaluating the US 2003 legislation, and he said it's like the 5 years plan we have. So over there in the US, they have the similar plan where after 5 years you evaluate the tangible and deliverables with what was sought to be achieved, and he found that it was not being done because it was so loosely structured. There were no targets.
Absolutely. I think Mr. Dharmveer made a very valid point that here the tenure of the bureaucrats is not assured. Mr. Kashyap, don't you think that unless the tenure is assured, you can't have key result areas being evaluated?
If you are taking RFD seriously, the RFD of the Minister for Personnel and the Chief Minister should include a target how many officers of senior level were transferred and how many were not transferred. So this openness is going to matter so much because the Chief Minister himself will be accountable.
Yes.
If it's an instrument of state policy to have
the
security.
Chief Minister and the Minister are basically accountable to the public.
Yes.
So I don't think you can make them accountable to a piece of paper.
No, I think
there's very important thing over here. We have to refer to the RFD which Ministry of Personnel, they themselves have put on their website. Now this is the RFD of first RFD which Ministry of Personnel and Training they have been, which is directly controlled by the Prime Minister, they have put on their website. If you see the parameters on the basis of which they are going to decide whether they have achieved the result or not are so loose and so intangible kind of thing. Like one of the things they said to improve personal policy and they give a weightage of 8, and then this interesting thing they say rolling out a new RTA logo is one of the targets and there is a scoring point of 2. Then AV support to RTA logo another 2. Amendment of RTA Act. Now this is in the Ministry of Personnel, it's a 3.7, that is the weightage, and so on. And even construction of a civil services officer institute is one of the tangible targets which they have put on in their RFT document. If this is in the first model RFT document which they have put in, then you can well imagine what the other departments are going to do.
Mr. Srivastava, we heard a reaction from three gentlemen here. Now, what kind of a reaction have you got from your fellow officers in Punjab? I mean, I believe you briefed almost all senior secretaries.
Yes, we trained about 300 officers of the government, and even the ministers and parliamentary secretaries also attended a sensitization program because the Chief Minister in his cabinet meetings.
Are they quite excited about it?
Yes, officers are excited because you see.
And what about the political masters?
But after all, the Chief Minister in the cabinet meetings asked the ministers to attend this sensitization seminar, and a letter was issued to them. So it all shows that the government is serious. And let us not take a negative view. This has just started. What will be the parameters it will improve upon, and ultimately you see they will say something and people like Goswami and people like other members of the public, they will comment upon it,
sir, we can't even participate. If you see the panel of experts which is over there in the ministry or even the expert panel which is going to evaluate, it is handpicked. There is no selection criteria. How are you going to select?
But at this point, Mr. Srivastava, I think you need a debate so that certain operations can be. Mr. Kashyap, on the face of it, I think this document, the RFD, looks very promising. That there will be a proper agenda will be evaluated. Then the deadlines, whether the deadlines have been met, whether the results have been received or not. But I think this is basically a kind of an understanding or a memorandum between the secretary and the minister. You think this is the correct format?
I think that is exactly the reason why it should succeed. Because I have seen in my service, 38 years I was in the government, and then I was overseeing the government as Chief Information Commissioner, that the agenda of the minister and the secretary have never been coterminous. The minister has a political agenda, the secretary has a different agenda to adhere to rules and regulations. If they have signed and agreed on something, then they have to adhere to it. I think that what Mr. Goswami has said, the misgiving that he has expressed is probably right, because there may be deficiencies in the very framing of the RFD. Now there is no reason why the framing cannot be improved. In fact,